Lucky you're here. Gosh.
So we are.
Oh.
Yes.
Those of you watching the recording, it's been a day already. It's been an absolute... Oh, my goodness me.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
So can you see who we've got here, Hayley? Hayley's seeing a different view, so it's very exciting for her.
A different view, and it's just been a day, guys. And so
I feel like we need to start off with your story of the morning.
Shall we start off with that while everyone's coming in? Okay, yeah. Here's my story, and if you're watching this on a recording, just fast forward. And if you are here, I want to see so much sympathy in the comments, please. And make sure you comment and let us know you're here, and we make this as interactive as possible. So I have been solo parenting like a boss. And then my hubby gets home this morning at 7:45, and he walks into my 11-year-old she's almost 11, who didn't check that the Thermomix bottom was on and continued to pour 3 liters of milk in there. So we've got a milk tsunami, and it's all falling into her shoes, and she didn't realize it until then. She's done that 4 times in the past 2 months. Side note. So then she's crying because I was upstairs and she was like, oh my God, Mum's going to kill me. Then Miss 9, who is a spicy little a-hole, tried to help her, and then Miss 11 told her to get nicked. And so I stupidly tried to use it as a teaching moment because Miss 9 has been very spicy. I'm like, oh, how does that feel? It's really hard when you try and talk to someone and help. That's how we feel when we try and help you, when you're screaming like a psycho. So then what does that do? She starts screaming like a psycho and is then in the fetal position in her bedroom. And then in all of this, I go to get Pippa dressed because God forbid Pippa could actually get herself dressed or something. And I go to get her school uniform, but no, she shat in both pairs of pants yesterday at school. And we had a support worker yesterday after school because I was somewhere else with Miss 9. And so I go to put her in her school clothes and I couldn't, but we'll just soak the shit stained pants in the wash trough. And so then when I go to get her dressed this morning, I've got some nice shit soup sitting there to wait for me. So then I've got them all screaming at me, and I put Pippa in Aria, Miss 9's clothes, but then Miss 9, skull clothes, and then Pippa's going, these are too big, and then my husband walks through the door.
I love that.
Yeah. And we had to be at OT by 8:30. So had all that. Like,
I feel like this sounds so familiar, but I feel like this really leads us into parental responsibility.
I think it's a perfect segue, and I get to have a moan as well. But thanks, Kelly. And yes, Katie, it's and you know what? I just love, so we've got a Slack chat in work. And so I shared this with our team because it's that thing it's just something that parents of kids living this life understand. Now, don't get me wrong. I know all parents have mornings like this morning, but they also don't have to be getting to OT. They don't have a 7-year-old that needs tube fluids stuff. They don't normally have shit on both pairs of pants and all that sort of thing. So it's like, no, this is our life, and at some mornings it's really bloody hard.
Yeah, it is.
All right, so thank you for your sympathy, everyone. I very much appreciate it, and I feel very seen. So get this party started, hey. All right,
everyone, it looks like everyone started to join in. Hopefully you got Hayley's stories. Otherwise, that's what the comments are about. And that leads us into parental responsibility, which is a very confusing term, I feel like.
Yes, absolutely.
Sort of something that you can be hit with, and it just makes you feel terrible and frustrated and cranky. And so that's what we're unpacking today.
Yeah, and parental responsibility is one of my favorite things to get going on. So Tara, if you see Tara going like this or something, she's like, tone it in, Haley, because it's one of the big, it's actually parental responsibility is how I started in NDIS. So it's a topic close to my heart and really, really excited to be sharing it with you guys today. All right. Guess what, Tara?
I was going to say, I feel weird not doing the slides because I'm like, what do I do?
I'm trying to do it and it won't move. Okay, now it is. Can you tell it's the first day today that I'm in the driver's seat, guys? All right, over to you.
Me, I'm Tara. I'm one of co-founders and head of marketing at Kindship. Very heavily in sort of the community lived experience space. And I've been with Kindship for about 4 years. So these are my little cherubs. Willow is, forget their ages. She's 11. Has a diagnosis of cerebral palsy and autism. With my little Indy, who's just been diagnosed with anxiety and ADHD, and then Ava is my eldest. I feel like leaning into this topic, I didn't even realize the extras I was actually really doing until probably jumping on a few webinars or needing to get some more support with our plans, or people saying to me, I can't believe you only have 3 hours of support work. And I was like, oh, well, that's normal sort of, isn't it? But when you really break down everything that you're doing, it's only recently that I'm like, wow, there's a lot happening in our life that isn't the typical. No wonder I'm burnt out. No wonder mornings are crazy. And I feel like it does with my youngest getting diagnosed. It really has shown me that so much is going on, Willow. And now we've got this to unpack as well. That, yeah, maybe I do need a little bit of help because it's not the typical home environment.
That was me when she told me how much support work she had. I said, literally, I'm not in those words though. I'm being kind of good today, kind of not good. You all know that you'll get an F-bomb or 3 out of me soon. But yeah, I remember saying that to you. I'm like, you have how many hours? That's ridiculous.
Yeah. But yeah, you guys must feel the same. Like you're not even realizing you're just so busy getting on with it, and you're like, oh wow.
Absolutely.
Reason.
Yeah, I know. So let's get into it. So for those of you, oh look, first spelling error that we found for the day. And we've both looked at these slides so much, it's hilarious. So I'm Haley Tearley. I am currently the CEO of Kindship, which I still pinch myself getting to say that. And I am also the founder of Ali Disability Support Services, which is a pediatric support coordination company, which means that I get to work and my team get to work with kick-ass families like yours and argue with NDIS every day. This is my motley crew. So I am the mum of 3 girls, and Pippa was born with Wiedemann-Steiner syndrome, which basically is it's a genetic disorder. And another side note, we might as well just retitle this the Haley Show today, I feel, but I have to share because there's so many of our regulars are here today. Pippa met disability access this week to the NDIS.
Yay!
So for those of you who don't know, we were denied disability access last year and told Pippa didn't meet the requirements. So we were able to resubmit. And so we now have a child who is on the disability side of NDIS as well as early intervention. So, you know, that's really exciting. And thank you for the yays because it was a big like, woohoo. And again, I think it comes into that parental responsibility, which really excited to sort of share with you guys today. So just to do our due diligence about this collaboration, this is essentially to say to you guys that, you know, there are no kickbacks here. So Ali doesn't get kickbacks from Kindship and Kindship don't get kickbacks from Ali. We're NDIS providers. We don't make enough money to give each other kickbacks because we're ethical. But it's really important that we're transparent about that. All right, so here we go. That's just parental responsibility. Now, Tara is going to be my voice of reason here today, because parental responsibility is actually quite a legislative heavy topic. And so, please put your comments in here, ask your questions, because I can sort of get a little too excited when I talk about that stuff, and Tara will pull me back and ask clarifying questions, and we'll also refer to your questions. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So what are we going to cover? You know what, Tara, you do this, so I'm not talking the whole time.
We will cover what it actually means in law. Even putting these slides together, I was like, it just makes so much sense. So I'm really excited for everyone to, see everything you got to say. What does it mean? How the NDIS decides what is reasonable to expect from families, because I guess it is very grey as well, what some people may get said to them, others might not. How to show when your child's needs exceed age-appropriate care. How to frame requests so they have the best chance of success.
Yes, and we've spoken a lot about that in the past, so you guys should be, old hats at that, but it's something I don't think that we can revisit too many times. So why understanding parental responsibility matters? Well, we need to understand this because this is basically how the agency turn around and go, no, we're not funding that because that's parental responsibility. So it's used to decline supports, and it's rarely explained, and it is applied inconsistently, and it leaves families feeling dismissed. So I know myself, when I have been to the agency and they say that's parental responsibility, I'm like, does this mean that I'm just a shit parent? Because this is really, really hard and I feel like I need some help, but you're telling me that this is just part of being a mum, and I think one of the things that I'm really lucky about is that Pip's not my oldest child, because I've sort of been able to have that experience of parenting to, neuro boring children, to know I'm like, no, this isn't what I would consider reasonable. So what is parental
I think it makes you feel so
yeah.
I was just going to say, it makes you feel so displaced because I guess, like, I know me, I don't want help. Like, I don't want to ask for help. So when you finally get to that stage where you reach out for it and it's just like slapping your face, oh no, you're a parent, this is what you got to do. I guess that's what really is the gut punch for you.
That is such a good point, Tara. Yeah, because you don't like asking for help. And I think, 99.9% of people watching this find it really hard to ask for help. So that is a really good point. Yeah, definitely. All right. So what is parental responsibility? Are you ready? They can't tell you. There's actually no clear definition in the NDIS Act. And I remember when I first learnt this, I was like, what? You keep telling me that's parental responsibility and you can't tell me what you think parental responsibility is. So the Act simply says the person who has legal responsibility for a child's care and safety. So that's got nothing to do with how much you're supposed to do for your kids or anything like that. This is literally talking about, we had kids, so we are legally responsible for them until they turn 18. That's all it's talking about. So there's no definition, there's no age cutoffs, there's no thresholds. And so this is really important for you to remember when they throw back to you, that's parental responsibility. So another thing to remember is that your early childhood partners, your local area coordinators, your NDIS contacts, they actually have no say in what gets funded in your plan, okay? So if they go, no, you can't do that, that's parental responsibility. This is not me telling you to go rogue, but this is me saying, well, really ask, are they the people who can tell me that? And, have I heard differently? And, really just, I guess I'm saying, don't take their words for it on face value. Do a little bit more digging. The early childhood practitioners and LACs, they're there to gather information and basically put it up to the delegates. It's not their role anymore, and it wasn't even in the past, to decide what you can and can't get funded. So when someone says that's parental responsibility, literally say to them, according to which section of the Act. Like, play dumb. Like, oh, can you show me where in the NDIS legislation it defines parental responsibility? And my team at Ali, we have had many conversations of that with delegates, and it's so they go, it's quite entertaining, actually. Yeah. All right. So when you're being told that, these are some of the questions that you should ask. So, and ask yourself, would I need to do this if my child didn't have a disability? Okay. So that's always, at the front of your mind. If you think of yourself with a parental responsibility filter, really ask, would I be doing this if my child did not have a disability? So I could ask myself, would I be greeted with a shit soup sandwich in my wash trough this morning for a 7.5-year-old? You'd be starting to go, yeah, no, it's starting to, that's not really parental responsibility once they start to get a bit older. Is this part of our life harder because of a disability? So going out as a family is hard, yeah, but is it harder because your child absconds, because they, in my case, call me a chicken banana, and when we're out in public, she hasn't told me to go F myself yet. I know, Tara, you're not that lucky. That's just a normal Tuesday. So, yeah, what parts of your life are harder because of your child's disability? And what are non-disabled children the same age doing independently? That is, I think, one of the biggest things to really think about. And it's not about comparing our kids. We are all on our own journey. But this starts to help to really delineate, okay, what am I doing because I'm a mum? And what am I doing because my child needs more help because of their disability?
Yeah.
So parental responsibility.
That last point, though, very heavily sits, because so many people think, oh, but they're under 7. So, of course, it's still my responsibility. But now I look back on the amount of stuff that I was doing. Like, Willow couldn't walk until she was 6. I'm like, that's, there's definitely, it doesn't matter the age. That can still be. It does
not matter the age. It's that thing on, the good old chestnut is we don't provide support workers for children under 7. That's bullshit. I'm really sorry, everyone. I realize there's probably little ears around. I'm a sweary person on a good day, but parental responsibility really gets me going. So I'll try and be good. If someone has little ears around, can you actually put it in the comment? Because if I know there's kids around, I'm way better. But if I don't,
it doesn't matter.
All right. So let's start looking at what can be sort of seen as parental responsibility and what is disability specific support. So preparing meals for our kids, right? That's a really obvious one. Yes, we have to feed them. Bugger, like they're bloody expensive, kids. However, do you have to think about postural support so that they don't choke? Do you have to think about, like in my case, Pippa used to get all of her nutrition through her nasogastric tube and or her PEG? Are you thickening fluids so that their fluids don't go down their lungs? Are you sitting at the table for 2 hours? Are you having to give them one-to-one supervision so that, food goes where it's supposed to be, or to prevent overstuffing, or, to make sure it ends up in their mouth and not up their nose or in their ears, or, all that sort of stuff? That's not just parenting. That is disability related support. And you can also go down to about what is age appropriate. So sitting at the table for 2 hours, I would say, trying to get that across to the agency for an 18-month-old, that you'd sort of go, I really don't know how you would do it unless you had really explicit examples of what you're doing for those 2 hours. However, if you can say, I have a 10-year-old and we're sitting at the table for 2 hours. A very good friend of mine, she has a little person with CP who she is so fiercely independent that she has to feed herself, but she won't let anyone do it. But so then mum and dad are sitting there for an hour and a half and she's undernourished and this and that and the other. When you give context, it really helps.
Yeah, I think going back to age too, like Willow, I can't just grab her a snack or grab her things. Like, it's that physical limitations as well. And by that age, she should be able to do that. So it might be she needs adaptive things. It might be she needs a support worker to teach her. But like, I don't have time to sit there and teach her everything she needs to be able to get a snack. So yeah, things like that.
Exactly. And I can see all the comments coming through in terms of 2 to 3 loads of washing a day, due to all of the nightly wetting. That is such a perfect example. 45-minute peg feeds 8 times a day. Ashley, amen, sister. I hear you. 1.5 hours for a 5-year-old. This is all the stuff that we're really going to start to unpack. Jane, I can see your comment, and Kelly, I can see your comment as well, and we will talk about that in a little bit. Okay. All right, let's use another example, taking your child out and supervising them. Yes, that's generally what most parents do. And this, I can say, is one of where parents really fall down with the accessing community funding, because when you ask for this funding, so let's say we want to go to the playground, and NDIS's response is, well, you would take a 7-year-old to the playground. Like, it's not that they pack their bags and go, see you later, mum. And that's generally where the evidence ends. But what actually you need to say is, we want help to access the community because Johnny absconds. They need one-to-one support with play. They can't access playgrounds safely. So, for instance, we might have a child, Willow's a good example, and Pippa as well. Like, they can self-ambulate to a point, but especially when they were younger, if there was a ladder, there's no way they could get up that by themselves. So we're having to physically lift them. I think, Tara, I can't remember where you shared that story of Willow where my mum's drowning me. Was that at work?
I was at the beach trying to get Willow into the beach without falling. So we gave it a good try. I think 4 attempts, us like just getting blown away by these waves. I'm holding on for her dear life, thinking, what if I let her go, she'll drown. She's laughing, thinking it's absolutely amazing. All my friends are just having like a little chat together, like oblivious, because all their kids are swimming. And she was just yelling out, my mum's drowning me. So that's a good example.
It's that perfect example, because she's 11 and she cannot be in the water and in waves and on sand by herself because of her disability. So this is the type of stuff that you need to start to pick apart. And for most of us, that's just life. Tara, you've probably held, well, not probably, I know you have held Willow's hand at the beach her entire life. So that's just part of what you do. But it's that thing I'm really noticing now as Pip gets older, where our friends are sitting under their, cool cabana reading a book, and their kids are, playing in the water, and I'm still out there with Pip. And I'm like, oh, that looks so nice. When do you get to do that?
Couldn't even imagine.
I know.
Couldn't imagine.
I know. And then needing help to interact appropriately with peers. So this is one where, the needs one-to-one support to play and needs help to interact appropriately with peers. I can say that's pretty hard to get for younger kids. So I'm sort of going to say from your 7 and under, you would need to have something like, using an alternative communication device, whether you're signing or something like that, or significant behaviours of concern would be the ones where it would be really, I guess, more likely to get across. But sort of your physical safety and not being able to access the playgrounds are that bit easier. All right. And then when we look at everyday tasks, so things like bathing, okay, so and look, the other thing is that we don't get a parent handbook to go, when do I stop actually being responsible for bathing my child? So I know that that's hard, but when you start to think about, I look at Pip's age, my girls, I'd put the water on for them, but then that would be it. They'd wash themselves, dry themselves, get dressed and all that sort of thing. Yeah. But we still do one-to-one support with Pip. Like, she can't do it herself. Toileting after age-appropriate milestones. So this is a big one, and there's always been, I guess, that unwritten rule of 5 and over is when you can start to claim nappies from NDIS. However, there is starting to be a lot of pushback in terms of going, oh, well, overnight wetting is normal until someone's 7, so getting incontinence assessments and that sort of thing, I think, is really beneficial in that. And then there's also, like I said, we've talked a lot about poo here today. You can tell, put a group of mums together and there'll be and dads, lots of poo talk, parents, I should say. Yes, okay, we might be toilet trained during the day, but how much are we soiling? How many changes of clothes are we needing to go through? What does that mean when someone's, for their skin integrity, when someone's sat in poo all day? It all really does come into play. Manual lifting, no brainer. So, if you are still lifting your child after 2 and there's no moving, that's definitely something to be looking at. And specialised beds for seizures or safety. Now, we know beds are a contentious issue in the NDIS world. So I would sort of just be saying specialised sleeping solutions and monitoring if they are having seizures. Any kids in here with TPN, you'll know what TPN is if you have one, or central lines. They really need to be monitored while someone's sleeping. Other examples, kids with tracheostomies, the nasogastric tubes, all that sort of stuff. It all comes into play. And communication devices like iPads. Okay, so they're helping a child communicate in the community is actually really, really important, because a child using Prolo Quotago on their iPad, and if someone doesn't know that, how are they going to ask where the toilet is, and just those sorts of things. So this is how you bring it back to function. Before we keep going, Tara, are there any comments that are worth jumping into now?
I feel like there a lot's on I guess toileting, like, and bathing, and what that age is, what is typical for those ages.
Yeah, okay. So yes, what is the age that we stop being responsible for bathing? So I guess, Monique, that's where there's a point where there's no right answer, and so I guess it's sort of the way we break it down is we get on Raising Children Network, or what's the other one? I'll have to think about it because it's on the tip of my tongue, but there's a really great evidence-based sort of printout fact sheets on what each age of self-care milestones are. And so we always include those in with our plan reassessments to show, well, this is sort of where Johnny is, and this is where a a typically developing 12-year-old would be. This is also where your functional capacity assessments are absolutely vital for plan reassessments, because it should show where your child's sitting on that developmental bell curve. And there's, there could be the argument made that when your child's 16 and living at home, you're still responsible for prompting them to be like, hey, you stink, go have a shower, versus are you giving that hand-on-hand support? Are you having to support them to dry themselves and all that sort of thing? It's not so much I'm not responsible for bathing. It's about going, well, what are you doing that's part of the bathing that should not be parental responsibility anymore?
Yeah. What about this one?
Oops. This one?
So, playing with other children, would evidence of my child being bullied and not being able to self-advocate be counted?
That's a really good point. I guess look, I'm going to be brutal here, but probably not. I would be going more for what is the risk here. So I would be define bullying. So I would be going, okay, so my child in social settings needs the one-to-one support in order to scaffold and be able to communicate with peers for safety. And the bullying examples can be, and this is what has happened when they have not been provided with one-to-one support. And you can provide examples of what the bullying looked like. And also, why can't they self-advocate? So what is it about their disability that is actually stopping them from being able to tell an adult? Is it that they're a non-verbal communicator? Is it that, they are very, very anxious and shy? Really going to those super granular, specific examples, because when we are that specific, they can't argue with it. Whereas bullying, I'll be really honest, bullying, if you go, my child's being bullying, the agency will go, oh, yeah, that's sad.
Yeah, but you can say it happens everywhere type
exactly.
thing.
How is that disability specific? Yeah.
Yeah. There's Emma shared a good resource here, but I guess there's a few about pooing because that's the theme.
Okay, yeah.
So
bring it on.
Overnight, though. So I guess, overnight, that's a bit different than wetting your nappy, I suppose. Like you said before that, wetting your nappy.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess in terms of there is nothing to say that you can't buy continence aids for your little person after 5, whether it's for nighttime or not nighttime. Obviously, every single plan is different, and you need to get advice for your own child. One hot tip I would give you, though, is that the agency love OTs for functional capacity assessments, but what we're finding is continence nursing assessments are what the agency are preferring in terms of flavour of the month. So if you have a continence nurse, there's basically, for those of you who don't know, a continence nurse is someone who specializes. Oh, look at this. We've got a continence nurse here. Hi, Emma. So I'm actually a continence nurse, and the toileting is very contentious. It is very personalized, but tracking urine output for 3 days and 7 days for bowels is very useful info for GPP, child family health nurse or continence nurse. Beautiful. Thank you so much for that, Emma. Great tips there. But if you're going for a plan reassessment and you would like continence products included, I would suggest you actually have a continence assessment if your improved daily living funding allows it, because the agency really like that over OT assessments at the minute. Don't ask me why. It just is. And it'll probably change. All right. Do not accept these statements. All right. So we don't fund support workers for children under 7. It's a load of codswallop. They do. And so I would be saying, again, where is that? Like, what evidence have you got to that? Because that's, you can use my thing, that's bullshit. That's parental responsibility. Again, give me a definition. Where does it say that that is parental responsibility? Everything about parental responsibility is inferred. Okay. That's an everyday expense. Well, what is an everyday expense? And this is a lot easier now to define now that we've got the definition of what is an NDIS rule and what is not. So if it's not listed in the naughty list of the NDIS support rules, I would be really questioning what is an everyday expense. And the other thing to remember is, will the NDIA fund it? And can I buy it? They are two very different questions. All right. So one is happening when the plan is being built. So when we ask the NDIS to fund something, we have to give the agency or the delegate enough information so that they can say that whatever we're asking for has met the reasonable and necessary criteria. And that has to be for every single support, whether that's your nappies, support worker, physio, OT, absolutely everything and anything. It has to meet every single one of those. Whereas the can I buy it, that's quite different. Okay. So this is about how you spend your money once it is in the plan. Now, disclaimer, this is not me telling you guys to go rogue, okay? But this is me giving you information to empower you. And we are also dealing with new PACE plans and things like stated and flexible supports and all that sort of stuff. Everything is a mess. But when you go to buy something, you do not have to meet every single reasonable and necessary criteria, okay? That is what the agency need to do in order to put money in your plan. What you need to do when you are spending money from your plan is remember that, let's just say you've been given a core budget of $10,000, right? That means that the agency has already decided that that $10,000 is reasonable and necessary. Now, they have in their mind what that $10,000 should be spent on, but that is a flexible funding, unless stated otherwise. Check your plans. Yeah. So that's where then you need to look at some different things and go, okay, is it legal? Is it going to cause harm? Is it an NDIS support? So is it on the naughty or nice list? You know, is this going to make my funding run out a lot sooner than what it would? And is it appropriate and disability specific? So whilst there's definitely very similar themes to will NDIA fund it and the reasonable necessary criteria, it is not the same. And I think that that is something that we always do need to remember. Does anyone want to, that's confusing sometimes when I explain that. Tara, do you want to sense check that for me?
So you mentioned that, and you mentioned the stated supports though. How often do plans have stated supports? Like, is it more of a, something that most plans are having these days? So then we don't have that flexibility.
So stated supports, and this is a good sense check for me. So stated support funding buckets are in every plan. Okay. So we have, so things like your improved daily living, pretty much all of your capacity building funding are stated support categories. Okay. So that means that we can't share money from one category with the next. Whereas with our core funding, that is a flexible, usually, support category. However, they can state them. So when they're flexible, that means that you can spend your money across the 2 or 4 different categories across core. Whereas what happens though is that in some of the, let's use stated therapy items, if the agency have written that the funding is for a speech pathologist and occupational therapist in your stated support category, you're stuffed. You can only use speech
Yeah.
and OT. And if they say in your core funding that you've got 10 hours a week under assisted with daily living and this is a stated category, you've got nothing. Whereas if they're just put as buckets, that's the flexibility that I'm talking about. But keeping in mind that as we move into new framework plans and all this sort of stuff, we're going to have to start to think about eligible impairments, which is different to disability, which we've done I think we've done that on, have we done a webinar on impairments? Notice of impairments? Can't remember.
Not specifically on just that. We've covered it in webinars, but we haven't had a whole...
Okay. That might be a good webinar. We'll see. Yeah. We'll see what comes. If you guys would be interested in understanding impairments, I think it's something that we definitely need to be aware of. But I also don't want to freak people out yet because we're still a long way away from them. So it might be something that we look at doing. New framework plans are due to start to roll out from July this year for participants over the age of 16. So and that will impact notice of impairments and that sort of thing. So maybe it might be something we look at later on. I'm just conscious there's lots of questions coming up. Shall we do, I think this one was first, Danielle. Oops. What about violent and intimidating behaviours between siblings? My ASD3 and PDA daughter, 8-year-old, often intimidates and violent towards my 12-year-old daughter. NDIS initially said this is parental responsibility to mitigate full-time. It is draining, obviously, and we're all in burnout. Yes, I do, Danielle. So this is where I would be really starting to keep track of what does violent and intimidating behaviors look like, because yes, sibling rivalry, sure, but violence, absolutely not. So I would really be starting just 1 week, keep a 1 week of a log to go, you know, punched, hit, scratched, all that sort of thing. Where were you? How often there's 2 parents in the house, what it means to have a support worker in the house, you know, and sometimes if you can demonstrate that it's not so that you can go and have your nails done, it's that thing on, no, I actually need someone for my ASD3 daughter, my you know, and I need someone with my, so I can be with my 8-year-old so that we can do their homework, or you know what I mean, like it's just getting down to that granular level. Danielle, really happy for you to DM us to get some more specific wording if you like, because that's not parental responsibility at that level, and we've been successful in getting funding for people in situations like that. Katie, my daughter uses loops as a sensory regulation tool. Would this be covered? So again, it depends, everything. So it's about saying what is specifically adapted and modified about anything that you buy. Okay, so are they specifically adapted or modified for disability purposes? Then yes, they can be considered an NDIS support. So loops are a very contentious issue in the NDIS space. Zoe, on this topic of consumable items, what advice would you give dealing with plan managers who would love to say no, even with supporting evidence from Allied Health? Right, so this one is such an illusion, and I do feel sorry for poor old plan managers. I used to say you could never pay me enough to be a plan manager, and here I am, the CEO of a plan management company. So, never say never. So this is where it's not actually about not having enough supporting evidence, okay? So even if an allied health professional says that this swing, let's use a swing as an example, is a disability support. It will help Johnny with his regulation, with the vestibular input. You can have the best allied health letter out there. But if it is on that no list and it is classed as a non-NDIS support, you've just wasted your money with the allied health. And this is the problem we are seeing, is that allied health professionals don't really understand the yes and the no list, and they think that if they write a letter of support, it trumps that, but it doesn't. It is all about legislation. So hopefully that one would help.
Yep.
Oops, I pressed the wrong
Absolutely.
button. Okay, I'm going to pause. Okay, let's do one more. Yeah, we'll do one more and then we'll keep going, and then hopefully I'm just conscious of the time for people who like to leave after an hour. But then just saying we will stay for another half an hour afterwards, and we can talk more about it. All right, so I want to start claiming a program called Risky Kids for my daughter. She's been going for a year and they've recently advised she would benefit from one-to-one sessions as well as the group sessions. The program isn't disability specific, but it's built specifically to support neurodivergent kids. They will do reports and goal setting. Katie, this one's hard because I don't know enough, but from a general perspective, where the red flags for me here goes, if it's a program that they're already offering, because we can't pay for the activity, right? So we can't use NDIS funding to pay for the actual activity. We use NDIS funding to pay for the supports that a child needs to engage in the community. So what I'm hearing here is benefiting from one-to-one sessions. That to me is not one-to-one sessions, is more, it's not supporting her to engage in that group environment. So if you had risky kids, and let's even take risky kids out of it, let's just say it was netball, right? If your child needed a support worker to help her to participate in netball, you could absolutely use your NDIS funding, provided you had it, to support her to engage in netball. Whereas if the netball coach said, oh, this is a one-to-one session, like they would really benefit from one-to-one sessions, well, that's really not appropriate for your NDIS funding. So hopefully that might help to delineate, because with not knowing enough, that's the high level answer I can
depend on how they what line item they put in the invoice, because I know Willow's dancing, I think they use, I don't know what they use, but I'm able to claim it on that. It's more of that, I think it's accessing the community support worker line item. Whereas if she was just going to
just dancing, you couldn't be able to claim it. Yeah. And this is where writing for disabled and your horse therapy and all this sort of stuff has gotten really confusing. So the way to look at it is, am I paying someone to help my child to access the community? So performability, we'll use that, the dance lessons, right? So if the support worker is helping your child to go to this establishment, use their social skills, help with toileting, help with regulation, with eating while they're at this thing, and it just so happens that they dance while they're there, and that's the writing for disabled. You're paying for the support worker, and it just happens to be that they're riding a horse while they're doing it. So that's also sometimes I find an easier way to get my head around everything, is if you've got an activity cost, you can't use your funding. The other stuff to keep in mind as well is that with group programs, is that if it's a support worker, right, they can't be claiming 1 hour for every kid. The 1 hour of support worker time has to be divided across how many children are there, and that's another big misconception. Okay. So yes, lots and lots of questions. We will get through the presentation and then will stay on for another half an hour to hopefully get through some of these. Hopefully that's okay. All right, what's the law actually says about parents? So there's these things in the Act called NDIS General Principles, and I want to bring them to your attention because this helps to be able to say, well, you're not respecting me right now, and there's actual principles about my role as a parent and a carer in the law, and I feel like you are not upholding them. So this is what the law says. The role of families and carers must be acknowledged and respected. Funny that. This is not optional. So when deciding reasonable and necessary supports, the NDIA must consider what is reasonable to expect families to provide, whether the child's needs are substantially greater than other children the same age, and risks to the well-being of family members, and whether the support would reduce the risk or improve the child's capacity. Okay, so that's a lot of information there. But define what's reasonable for families to provide, okay? So if there is a 5-year-old, so I think maybe this is a good example for how I got into NDIS. I had been diagnosed with cancer and Pippa had just had her feeding tube placed, and I needed help because I needed to be away from home for 12 weeks while I went and had treatment. And the argument from the agency when I asked for help was that it's reasonable for me to still need to find care for my kids, regardless if they're disabled, if I'm away for 12 weeks. Okay. And so it was that thing on, yes, I can farm out my other two, but this one has only had a feeding tube for 4 weeks and won't let anyone touch her. And so this is sort of that where you can start to delineate what's reasonable and that sort of thing. Okay. And risks to the well-being of family members. Now, this is where I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Just saying that you're burnt out isn't enough. All right. They actually need evidence that you've been to your doctor and have said, I'm not coping. They need to see evidence that, we submit things from mums and dads, physios and chiropractors to show that there's bulge discs and different things like that. And that's why they can't help with the lifting. We've had employers write letters and say, yes, this person is at risk of losing their job because of XYZ. Get creative, okay? Get wherever you essentially back up what it is you're asking for and what you're saying, that is what you need to be providing to the agency.
That's great. They're great tips.
Yeah, thank you. I'll be here all week. Okay, so the NDIA recognises that informal supports are critical. They know they would be stuck without us. That carer burnout, illness and overload place those supports at risk, and that sustaining families is essential to meeting children's needs. So this is why they have things in place. There is emergency funding and ways that people can go around if something really urgent happens to mum and dad. They can, under those circumstances, do a short-term increase of funding or different things like that. But again, it comes down to how it is put forward to them. If it's put forward as, look, this kid has a disability and mum's gone into hospital and we need someone to look after the kid. That's what happened to me. And it just was not, I can see now I did not articulate it well. Now, we can get into the argument of should you have to be a support coordinator to be able to articulate it well. But basically what they came back and said to me is, we're really sorry that you've got cancer, but even if you need to find stuff for your kids regardless. Whereas if you can go, this is why I need disability-specific help for my child, and this is why I can't ask a neighbour. This is why my mum can't handle them. It's really about going into those really specific examples. Yeah. And remember the operational goal. Yeah.
Like you've got 3 kids, and yes, they could handle 3 kids, but they can't handle 3 kids with one that has a disability.
Yes.
Is that a fair argument too?
Yeah, exactly. It's like they can handle them. However, because I don't know, let's say Willow needs one-to-one support in the shower, and needs one-to-one support with packing, like, because she can't use her hand, and Pippa needs her food and water through a tube, and has an intellectual disability and is getting to the age where she needs support socially and outside of the community to be safe, because I'm not, at 7 you can tend to just drop them off and then pick them up rather than sort of staying there and supervising and make sure they don't hop in a stranger's car because they love people. These are all of those things that you really do need to get down into the weeds about it. So the operational guidelines, it's really important to remember that they are simply the NDIA's interpretation of the law. I'm not saying that they don't stand and not to follow them, but I am saying that if your situation does not fit what is written in the operational guidelines, it doesn't mean that they can't be overridden. It's just whether or not you've got enough oomph in you and the right evidence to be able to fight it. So keeping in mind that your well-being matters, and yes, it is relevant, and yes, it is lawful to talk about it. The law says they have to think about you. So we just need to get better at presenting with them how and why we're not coping. So other things that is really helpful to think about when asking for supports is it value for money? So that is always, you can hit everything on the box and then they go, oh, sorry, this is not value for money. And at the minute, as we know, the agency are trying to save a lot of money. So this is getting thrown around a lot more. Duplication of services, I must admit, this is something I see parents do all the time, and it's no one's fault. I do get a little cranky with some allied health professionals, not going to lie, because you can't be having one speech pathologist for both work. You can't have two speech pathologists working on communication and language, right? Whereas if you have a speech pathologist working on feeding and a speech pathologist working on communication and language, that you can sort of get over the line. So being really clear, and if there is what could be perceived as a duplication of services, you need to be really clear about what that is and why. So a really good one that the agency throw back is they say they won't fund psychology and behaviour support funding because they see it as a duplicate, whereas those of you who have been involved in behaviour support and psychology can see that they can be two very separate but complementing professions. So that's a really good example.
Another one, sorry, Willow, who used to have 2 OTs. And lots of people I said, like, why has she got 2 OTs? But there was one that specialized more in that emotional regulation, friendship, social, and then there was one for like the self-help skills, the cerebral palsy side of stuff. So that's
exactly. And so that's where it's like if you did a plan reassessment and was asking for 20 hours for emotional regulation OT and 20 hours for self-care help OT, you would need to explain why they are separate. You would need to explain how they're not duplicating, and what is the risk if funding for both of them was not provided. And effectiveness, okay, is it working? So how does it work? How does giving you time to go and be a human away from your children, or actually to give you a second pair of hands with your children, effective, and reducing the functional impact of their disability? So this doesn't mean choosing the cheapest option. That's also what I really want to flag. But you need to be able to demonstrate that if this is option 1 that you would prefer is more expensive than product B, you need to be able to demonstrate, though, why it's value for money. So why this works, and what happens if it's not there. So yes, always keep your goals in line. And this also is just a bit of a hot tip from me, is don't let them not include a goal about maintaining your ability to care for them. They are in plans, they do exist, and it's a load of codswallop if they tell you that they can't. And we have had delegates push back. So this is our tips on what to do for goals. So goals that relate to sustaining care, reducing burnout, and maintaining family well-being are valid because they directly impact your child's safety and outcomes. So if you don't have a goal in your kid's plan, it's so much harder to justify using certain supports without that.
Yeah.
So that's a real hot tip to get. Don't go out and do a plan reassessment or do different things to get that in there. But if you're doing a plan reassessment, get a goal in there about sustaining informal support.
Good tip.
All right. Look, we've got 20 seconds left to be under an hour. I'm so impressed with us. So just to keep in mind, there is no fixed definition of parental responsibility in the NDIS. Remember that the Act is law and that guidelines are not. Focus on functional impact. Do not rely on emotions. I'm sorry, but keep emotions out of it if you can, and just try and be really factual. And remember that your well-being as a carer matters, and every support you request must meet the reasonable and necessary requirements. So you're not asking for extra. You're asking for what is reasonable, what is necessary, and what is lawful. So,
that we did, would that tie in? Because I feel like it can still be confusing about, the interpretation and what the law says and translating what that actually means. That's where that resource will come in handy that we made up.
Yeah. So that'll be, excuse me, that'll be in your inbox, ladies and gents, with the recording of today. Tara's whipped together as she does, another fabulous resource to add to your tools. And so another resource that could be really useful for you all is our family support pathways. So this is a free program with Kindship that we're super excited to be working with parents of children with disabilities. So what we find is it's not so much a lack of supports, it's really about an overwhelm of where do those supports exist and where do I go to next. So the family support pathways gives families that opportunity to go through our intake form to sort of see exactly where they're at, meet with our fabulous peer navigator who is also a parent of children with disabilities, and actually just go, what's working, what's not, super high level. Okay, so this is not a free support coordination plan management service. I wish it was. However, it's about showing you where maybe you could turn to that's not the NDIS, and something in the community that might help empower you guys and sort of help you take the next step in your journey. So that is
like how to do things, how to get it, what to say, tips like that as well. And I think another thing to realize is you don't have to have a particular challenge or you could just come in and say, I don't understand this. And that's where I guess when you're in that overwhelm, sometimes you don't know what it is you need. You just know that you need something. That's where your peer navigator can break that down and say, okay, you need help with this. This is how you can get it. This is what you need to say, type thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we were really lucky to receive a grant to be able to deliver this program, and it's been fabulous sharing. It's actually funded by the NDIS, and it's been so amazing sharing with the agency, the grassroots on the ground on what is happening out there. So by all means, please come and hang out with us. Okay, there are a lot of questions.
I think
there are a lot of questions.
This is the next one that we had up. So can money from other core buckets be used for consumables? I've been told they are only flexible one way, which is confusing to me because they are both worded the same way.
Yeah, look, so obviously just in terms of flagging and reiterating, I can only give general advice. every situation is different, and this is not me doing a politician's response, but this is me just saying, don't go and do what I say without checking your plans, because I don't want to get you in trouble. So in terms of, can money be spent flexibly, whether it be with assistance with daily life or for consumables, in my experience, yes. However, we are having the world of, we are in cost cutting, and we are in every single purchase being scrutinized at your next plan reassessment. So my advice in terms of, if you don't have funding for consumables and you want to use your other funding from core for it, is, if you do it, make sure it is an NDIS support, and make sure you can sort of demonstrate why, and don't do it at the detriment of then possibly losing some support worker hours, because that's essentially you going, oh, well, I don't need these hours. I would rather buy this piece of consumable or low cost assistive technology. So just keep those in mind with any purchases that you make.
We have Emma. Kate, I have had success only last week with my clients getting NDIS to pay for loops. Trick is buying one pair at a time and keeping the cost under $50. The NDIS said that to save money, your early childhood partner can send a quick email to the plan manager if it is rejected, instead of an OT, so that will cut costs. My son is with Kindship and uses loops, and I haven't attempted to purchase for him yet, so I'm interested to see what Haley and Tara says. Let's be honest, Haley.
Yeah, look, we have had many conversations, and I might take this one on notice and talk to the plan management team, because I feel like we have, is where don't go out and buy loops, everyone, but I feel like we've been sort of talking about, well, what is the adaptation here, and just putting it out there. My kids, we use headphones and loops and that sort of thing. So I think that loops I like rather than headphones, and not headphones in terms of like, I mean like music playing headphones, noise cancelling headphones. Those I would say, I just don't see how we can get them across. But loops, we've been having conversations about, well, you know what, that is an actual adaptation. I don't see kids who don't have sensory regulation and different things like that, not wearing loops and that sort of thing. And I also just say, here's Pippa, take her somewhere noisy without loops, and then tell me they're not a disability specific support. So yeah, feel free, Emma, just throw in there, I spoke to Haley and she said yes. See, I want to see how quickly the email comes into my inbox, and they'll be like, you going rogue again?
I was going to say, you love to go rogue, you get excited. And
I do, like, I can't help it.
You get loops, you get loops.
Yeah. But I do, I've been looking at loops and going and sitting there, because this is what I do. I go, you know what, I actually think that they could be adapted, but we don't get that many requests. Like, I actually don't think we've had any requests for loops, so we haven't had to. So yeah. Katie, would this cover a solo parent who is also being hit by their ASD PDA child? So it can be. The only thing that I would sort of be careful of asking for a support worker purely for behaviour, is that they may give you behaviour support funding before they'll give you a support worker. Because they would see that as more value for money, because there's the option to build on capacity and that sort of thing. So again, without knowing everything, that's my only sort of, just be careful on that.
Yeah, that's very true. This one's quite similar. Child is violent and aggressive towards the parent, but also absconds and lack of safety awareness.
Yeah. So LM, I'm not exactly sure in terms of violent and aggressive in what context, because, if you're trying to cook dinner and I guess this goes back to you as well, Katie, if you're trying to cook dinner and you've got hot things and you've got multiple kids and, you're being, like Pippa flogs me about 10, 15 times a day, even while she's calling me a big chicken banana. And so there are times where when we're driving, and she'll throw stuff, or we've been cooking dinner, it's so dangerous. So if you can provide examples of that, and definitely in regards to absconding and lack of safety awareness, by all means, I think you've got a really good opportunity. But again, absconding is classified as a behavior of concern. So just be mindful that you might get behavior support funding before you'll get support workers.
Yeah. This is a good one. I'd love to know more about the use of a support worker to enable me to care for my other non-disabled child. For example, my daughter, 4 years old with CP, finds it very challenging to attend and watch her big brother's gym class. She gets very jealous and upset, but also the gym holds some classes upstairs, no lift, which my son would love to do, but I can't take Evie up, and he doesn't want to go by himself.
Yeah, like Emma, that to me is the perfect example of exactly what a support worker is for. So as an example, and this is where you can do, okay, so siblings are expected to be dragged across to their sibling sports, like that is just part of being a parent. However, I use a support worker for when I'm at my girls' stuff, because the last time I took Pippa when our support worker was on leave, she absconded, she's screaming at me, she's hitting me, she's, because she can't wait and she doesn't understand what she can't go in, and all of those behaviors and that sort of thing. So to me, Emma, this is literally the writing exactly of why you would need a support worker. You couldn't write it better yourself. Just get an OT to, put that in a functional capacity assessment. Just be careful in terms of the classes upstairs and no lift. I would be, there's just that borderline, like, is it their responsibility because it's not an accessible place? But because we're not talking about your daughter, we're talking about your son who is able to go up the stairs. But definitely, that to me, I see no red flags with that at all. But just don't say it in terms of I want to be able to take my 7-year-old to gym, right? It's exactly this. There's this is what happens when we do it. This is why. Why can't family look after her? Why can't this? Why can't that? You essentially give them every single piece of information they could come back with, and you're just proactive and answer it in advance.
This is another goodie. Afternoon group programs that run after school hours, run by NDIA registered provider, refusing to fund, and it has said it's parental responsibility to care for children outside of school hours.
Oh, I love these ones. These ones are always so much fun. So, Heather, I am going to guess this is about how you've asked for it. Okay, so have you asked for funding for your child to attend this group because they can't attend OSH and you need to work? That's generally what happens in these situations. And they go, well, every parent has to work and every parent has to find things for their kids to be able to do after school. So where we get success for kids who can't attend OSH is we have to show the agency that we've tried to attend OSH. We have to show the agency that they've applied for the additional inclusion funding, and it's still not safe for them to be able to attend OSH. This is, again, this is why I'm asking for this, okay? Rather than focusing on it being after school hours, and I think they've interpreted it as you're looking for a babysitter. Obviously, I don't have all the information, but that's generally what we see pushback for on those things.
Yeah, and I guess, Katie, that covers that too. Like, if you cannot work because you need to look after your child and they cannot attend these services, I guess this falls under that as well.
Yeah.
Burnout is a huge one. How do we need to show this? So I think you covered going to your GP, getting the mental health care plan, and things like that, Hayley.
Yeah, Carer Gateway Counselling. They do a carer's star, a wellbeing star as well. That's always really good. Chiropractors, physios, a carer lived experience statement, all that sort of stuff is really, really great evidence.
What's this one? What can you do if showing your own illness, burnout, and weakness isn't safe to show?
Yeah, look, sorry, Katie. There's no right or wrong answer in that instance. It is about you it's like doing your own risk. You have to weigh up the risks. If it's not safe to show and you can't show it, then I hate to be blunt, you're not going to get the funding for it.
My chat is going a bit weird. It's covering up some people's.
Okay.
It's just covering up some text.
Okay. Let me. Oh, this one's a good one. All right, Danielle. NDIS told me you can't have 2 therapists working on one goal in her plan, so need to be really clear in the progress reports. Yeah, we have 9 goals in our plans. Yes. Another nice hot tip is that there's no longer a limit on the amount of goals you're allowed to have in your kids' plan. It used to be 6 or 7, and now you can have unlimited goals. So just keeping that in mind. Jessie, if we were to get reports for parents, therapists, medical in support of carer burnout, does this mean that it could be claimed as part of our child's NDIS funds? I'm assuming no. Yeah, Jessie. The only instance I've seen being able to use NDIS funding to demonstrate carer burnout is at the ART level, where they will pay for those assessments and different things like that, but definitely not. But you also don't need a full psychological assessment either. So things for going to see your GP and going to see, any sort of counsellor and stuff is pretty good evidence. If you want. Sorry, I'm just going through here. I'm not able to support.
I think
I think we've
done above there.
Yeah, Eurus for therapies. Can you get any? Hang on, let me add this. Now, I'm going to say your name wrong. Eurus, is it? I'm very sorry. I hate saying people's names wrong. It's a pet hate of mine. For therapies, can you get any therapies or only those stated in the plan? Planner, stated therapist, OT, and physio do the same thing. It depends how your plan is worded. So if it says early childhood, if it says early childhood therapists or therapy team or allied health supports, you're good to go. You can sort of use pretty much anyone that's listed in the pricing arrangement if you're plan managed. If you've got wording saying funding has been built in this plan for, and then they list individual therapists, then you are at the minute, the way the interpretation sits, limited to only using those therapists.
What about, is that planner stating the therapist, that OT and physio do the same thing? Like, that's not correct.
I guess, well, yeah, but that's the planners.
Yeah.
I do remember seeing a comment from Jane about foster carers. Back up a bit. Let me find it.
Oh, it was missed.
Yeah. So legal responsibility means that if the child is in foster care, then technically NDIS can lob back to the foster agency and deny me the carer more help. Yep, that you absolutely have it in one there, Jane. So, and this is something that we really struggle for with families who or foster carers of children who are under guardianship, because the child representatives are the Department of Child Protection, and so that really does leave this massive gap of foster carers being quite unsupported, and it comes down to then what DCP are willing to provide to the carer, because ultimately the agreement is between the child representative, which is the which is Department of Child Protection, and the NDIS. Fun times. Have we missed anything else?
I don't think so.
So Jane said, oh, reparental. Yep, so I've answered that. All right. So I think that's everything. You can feel free. We can take a couple more questions, but if not, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. As always, it's always fun. And thank you for being so engaged. We would love to know what topics you want us to cover over the next few months. Feel free to write some suggestions in the comment box, or to DM us or email us, or anything. You know how to get hold of us. But we want to keep these webinars going, but it's really important to us that they are what you need help with and what you want. So really, you know, Tara and I, we love these. Like, it's like, oh yay, it's a webinar day. So we're also looking at some other workshops as well, to see maybe, you know, sort of more interactive, and just to put it out there, things like, you know, how to write a lived experience statement, or how to do a change of situation, and actually it being a small group. So, you know, we keep it limited to 10 people. This would have to be paid though, and no, you wouldn't be able to pay it out of your NDIS plan. You know, to really sort of just go deep, and it's almost like an NDIS masterclass. Genevieve, deep dive into support workers. I feel we've done that. Have we got a webinar?
We've done support workers.
Yeah. Send that.
Just right.
Oh, sorry.
I can send it through. Bear with me. I might be able to send it through here.
Email.
You'll always get the follow-up email with any resources and the slides and the recording. So if there's anything that you want to ask, feel free to email us back. And also thinking about the workshops, Hayley, perhaps even there's webinars that we've covered and you've liked them, but you're like, oh, I still need a bit more, or there's actually a particular topic that you didn't go into as much. Just let us know.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because these webinars are high level, you know, and we keep them high level. We don't go nitty gritty. So absolutely, if you want to go like super deep dive into something, very much happy to look at it. And thank you for all your beautiful comments. It's nice to, you know, we put a lot of time and effort into these webinars to make sure they are what you want. So it's lovely hearing that that you're happy with the sessions. Melissa, let me just show. Okay, bit off track, but we stated with supports, whose responsibility is it to know about what is stated in the plan? The reason I ask is because I am a counsellor and some clients don't share their NDIS plan with me. So is the responsibility on the participant? Yes, it is. So there is no, participants do not need to give providers their plans, and so therefore the onus is on the participant. Where I get cranky is when providers who don't see the plan are, you know, going, yeah, you'll be fine, and they're not. So if you've got that written there, Melissa, to say, you know, just confirming that you have funding and are able to use your funding flexibly for a counsellor, because I will side note, I have never seen counselling stated in a plan. That, and then I would also say you need to have a conversation about what happens if and when those invoices are cancelled and not paid, and having an agreement with the participant on how those funds are recovered.
Here's sorry, I'm just posting your new support worker snippet.
Oh, yeah, there you go. I think that was it Genevieve?
Yeah. So that one is support workers, what they can do. And this one that I'm sharing now, so they've been broken up, is how to get one through the NDIS.
Yeah.
But yeah, always email back and we can share links with what we've done. There you go.
Ashley. I'm just going to answer this for Ashley. Struggling with NDIA denying consumables, as they say it's the hospital's responsibility, but the hospital won't provide as she has an NDIS plan. Oh, Ashley, I remember this well. So really, if you can get a letter from the hospital saying, because we've done this for little people who've needed oxygen, like oxygen oximeters and suctioning machines and all this sort of stuff. If you can get a letter from the hospital saying that it is no longer, like, it's not something we provide because it is now a disability related health support, then generally the agency are pretty good.
Cool.
All right. I think that's us. All right.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see you next month. Yeah, tell all your friends about the awesomeness. And I would just love to get 1,000 people. That's my goal by the end of the year, is to have 1,000 people register for a webinar.
Imagine that.
I know.
Might have to do something about the comments and chat. Would be here for hours.
I know. We would. I never said 1,000 attend. All right, guys. Thank you. Yeah, have a great week. And, you can reach us anytime.
Yep. Expect an email in your inbox. Right. Bye-bye.